Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Basic Education Board.
Hello viewers, welcome to the TV learning series. Here we are again with the senior sixes, excuse me, and we are coming to the end of the two kind of interconnected units in which we look at Unit 16 and Unit 17, more or less kind of linked together. So in today's session, we are looking at assessment, but the first part of it. So we are looking at multiple choices, how we make the right choice from the very many options that are provided, and what we base on to be able to say, okay, you know what, out of A, B, C, and D, C is the most correct. And this takes us to what? How do we make these choices? 2, are we expected to interpret every other answer as an option that is provided to see which we think matches with the one that we are considering to be most correct? Because now this is here, the tricky part comes in. When we say most correct, does it mean that all of them are correct, but one is weighing above the other and stuff like that? So today, that's what you're looking at, multiple choices, about 8 to 10 numbers. Those should be good enough for you to be able to have a hint and a guide on what is expected when you're doing paper 1, multiple choice. So if we can start with the first question. They're saying which pentadactyl limb is adapted for flight? Okay, so now we have to start thinking. What does the word pentadactyl mean? 2, what is adaptation? 3, activity, a feature, flight, a form of locomotion. So being given options A, B, C, and D, 1, we need to look at the question again, look at the statements, and pick out the key words. So it means, therefore, that if we look at, say, A as an option, we talk of the pentadactyl, we're looking at 5-digit arrangement, 5-digit all the way through. But again, we now have to start looking at them and see which one would be most suited for flight. So we look at the length of the bones and as well the digits and see where it is very possible that if we added a certain structure, maybe a membrane, maybe a tissue, or maybe feathers, anything, which one would easily come out as a flap? So that we're able to see that as an answer because we are looking at flight as a form of locomotion. Other forms of locomotion are also represented here because these are 5-digit structures, pentadactyls, but in different organisms. Meaning that if we are to look at what would be provided then, the answer would actually be D. So in choosing, therefore, we need to look at 1, the nature of the question. Is a form of activity by description represented? 2, what is the design of the structures provided? So that we combine pentadactyl as a limb, as limbs are for locomotion. Then we look at the form of locomotion if it is flight. Then we look at the structure that may, if we added additional structures, would actually facilitate in flight. Question number 2. Which are examples of homologous structures? Now, the question takes us to one thing, the key word, homologous. So we have to start looking at all these and see when we say homologous structures, what do we actually mean? Structures with the same ancestral origin, or different origins, but sharing a common role. So it's now taking us back to divergent evolution or convergent evolution. When we say same structures, the question is it about ancestral or similar in terms of what they do? Or different in terms of what they do, but having similar structures in terms of the origin? So that when we look at the wings of bats and butterflies, some are arthropods, the others are mammals. What's the connection? Fins of fish and whales. Whales have flippers. Fish have fins. Whales are mammals. Fish are not. So what is the connection? Do they have the same ancestral origin? Are these structures the same in terms of ancestry or in terms of the function they possess? C, hind limbs of frogs and grasshoppers. All right, vertebrates versus invertebrates. Could they have had the same origin? We're trying to look at every option that is given to link it to the word homologous. But the forelimbs of primates and penguins. All right, primates, penguins. Now we are looking at options. What are penguins? What are primates? What about the pentadactyl digit structure? Do they all possess? It's such that when we look at our most likely provided as the answer, as D, then it makes sense and connects very well with number 1, if you still remember. That's how it is. We have pentadactyl in both, in D. So, homologous. Yeah, I think it makes sense. To the other number, an example of natural selection. What is an example of natural selection? So we now have to start thinking, okay, nature chooses organisms that are suited. Just suited to live in that environment or most suited, most adapted? Taking us again to what we are looking at as survival for the fittest. Is it grammar? Is it scientific? When we say fittest, what do we mean according to science? Most adapted to live in an environment that has changed. So that the new environment can support the organism that now has certain features others do not have. So we again need to start making a comparison. Are they talking about artificial selection or natural selection? How slow is it? How fast is it? Taking us back to the differences we looked at. So A, a giraffe stretching its neck to reach higher levels, a juvenile bird learning to sing, development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria, okay? Selective breeding of tailless cats. Okay, we want cats without any tails anymore. Selective, human-induced. Development of antibiotics. Who uses the antibiotics? Bird learning to sing. Is that acquiring? Is it inherited? Is it inheritable? So when we look at development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria, now the question is the natural environment that has been created. How is it playing its role in creating new strains of bacteria? So that when we head into C, then it really adds up. Mutations would take place. New information comes up. And then we are in position to start looking at use of antibiotics, changing the DNA of bacteria, changing the bases, changing the genes, changing protein synthesis. Now new strains surfacing out of reproduction and mixing up. Then that means that, so C really makes more sense because B would be acquisition. Stretching its neck for higher leaves. Is that an acquired feature or heritable feature? That's what you are now looking at. So in doing multiple choices, please, those are you weigh every question against, you weigh every option against each component you're looking at. If it's natural selection, where does it fall? Is it in D or C or B or A? Excuse me. And it is in this case where you have to understand the terminologies and link the concepts, link the adaptive features. Going for gym activities and you have your 6 packs as an acquisition of muscle strength does not mean that once you produce these are inherited by your offspring. That's what we are looking at. Going to the next question, what is required for natural selection? Now, this is another set, another component, in which, one, we are saying, what is the soup? What is the ingredient? What is the prerequisite? What is needed if natural selection is to take place? If antibiotic-resistant bacteria are to form, where are we going to get them from? What do we need to have around? So one, acquired characteristics. So we must look at these 3 components put together: acquired characteristics, advantageous characteristics, and genetic variation. And then you have A, B, C, D, done in a way of combinations and structuring and additions and omissions of the 3 statements. Now here the question asks for your attention, it asks for your caution, and asks for how conversant you are with the topic. So we must know the ingredients of natural selection. What is needed for it to take place? Is it acquiring characteristics or inheriting them? So let's check. A is saying I only, which is acquiring characteristics. Natural selection, acquire, go to the gym, have 6 packs, stretch the neck of the giraffe, keep stretching your arms, and then you get taller, and then you're able to be the one allowed to live in taller houses? No. B, I and I. What is I? Acquired characteristics and then genetic variation. That the differences we have as a result of genes plus the characteristics we acquire around can actually bring about natural selection. Now, this is where we also need to know what makes everything wrong if it is added anywhere. We need to remember that acquiring characteristics is not a condition for natural selection. So we start digging. Look for where I is. We use that as an elimination method. Kick out what you think is less correct or is obviously wrong, and then we start remaining with those where we can increase our chances for making it right. So what do we have? C, they're saying advantageous characteristics. The question is, advantageous. The ones that will make us survive. Inherited, but giving us a positive chance. The most desired. Advantageous in the way that make us more equipped for this new environment. So that when we look finally at the answer as C, then it is coming from careful selection of where I is making it wrong, because acquired characteristics are not inherited. And natural selection is essentially having the backbone of inheritance. Most desired, advantageous features, organisms get advantaged. The least advantaged clear out. Most advantageous grow, reach reproductive age, pass on their characteristics to the next generation, heritable. That was the choice. That was the reason. Another number. Now with this one, care is taken. We have to read it very carefully. So much information, a lot of imagery. So we need to see very, 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 very carefully, read the text with understanding, and then merge it with an image. The green lizards, with that scientific name, living in mainland Greece, eat mostly insects, but also small amounts of plants. Important information. Mostly insects, but also small amounts of plants. So it means that the menu is essentially insectivorous. Meaning that if you removed the insects, would they adapt to plants? Or vice versa? The same species living on the Greek islands where insects are scarce, oh, wow, show a greater percentage of those physical traits useful for eating plants than mainland lizards that do eat the insects. The question is, what do you think would be the biological explanation for these observations we've seen? Time for you to think. So let's look at the breakdown of the multiple choices. That a variation, the differences in each lizard population allowed adaptation to take place. B, that lizards migrated to areas where they were better adapted. Okay. Let's go back to the question. Living in mainland Greece, eat mostly insects, but also small amounts of plants. The same species living on Greek islands. So we have islands and mainland. Show a greater percentage of those physical traits useful for eating plants than mainland lizards. Okay, so away from the mainland, somewhere there in on an island, isolated, plants most, and then mainland, insects a lot. C, that lizards on the islands, isolated, the other ones that do eat plants, diverged due to lack of interbreeding with mainland population. Due to lack of interbreeding with mainland population. Now, this is where we have to start thinking. What is interbreeding? When it does not happen, what are we having finally? I'm saying that homologous structures have prevented separate species from evolving. D is not at all related to the question. So we kick D out before anything. So we remain with A, B, and C. The variation in each lizard population allowed adaptation to occur. But the question is, are they living in the same place? They are separate. Lizards migrated to areas where they were better adapted. What about these that still do eat some small amounts of plants? C, the lizards on the islands diverged. So we are evolving from one central point and separating, divergent evolution. Ancestral origin. Now look at the different species. Isolated by a water body. Mainland, animal, insect-like, eating. Island, plant. Excuse me. So when we look at C, that lizards on the island diverged due to lack of interbreeding with the mainland population. Because there was no chance for them to be together. We now look at geographical isolation, how it can be used as a weapon, as a machinery for evolution. Diverging initially similar species, because the fact that they are able to eat some plant matter, but mainly now eating insects. And now the ones on the island are actually plant eaters, is a clear indication that there is some backward link, if you're to trace it, such that our answer falls to a C. First absorb it, reinterpret it, and look at how divergent evolution comes in. Look at the reasons as to why species may arise. When a population reaches a point where interbreeding amongst them does not anymore, then that means we are now heading into speciation. New species are formed. All right. Let's check out another one. The diagrams show various wings, so let's look at them and check carefully. Do they look the same? And if yes, how? Is it in terms of function or in terms of origin? When we talk of pentadactyl character, can we identify it in the images? How do the last three differ from the first? So the question should be guiding, so that you're on track, you go slowly with each and every part you're looking at. Which statement describes the relationship between structures of wings? So they are all wings. Now I want to find a connection between all of them based on what they have given us. Which one makes it correct? The bat wing and insect wing are homologous. We need to know what exactly the term homologous means. Because they have the same function? Is that the definition we looked at? Try to recall. B, that the limbs of birds and bat wings are homologous due to convergent evolution. So we now start thinking, okay, divergent evolution, same ancestral origin, diverge into new species, into new environments. Convergent evolution, different ancestral origin, structures as adaptive features they acquire along the way tend to look alike. In which case, organisms tend to come together in terms of similarity, though with different origins, ancestral. So now start thinking. C, that the wings of pterodactyl and the bat are analogous due to divergent evolution. Analogous structures. How do we describe them? Do they share the function but different origins? Or do they share the same origin but different functions? So this is why you have to be able to strike a very clear difference between analogous and homologous. D, that the bones of wings of pterodactyl, 1, bird, 2, and 3, the bats, are homologous as they have common ancestry. So that when we finally go for our answer as B, yeah, it makes sense. So you need to be very critical here of the terminologies that do commonly come in multiple choice questions. The next question is about variation. And this is likely to be our very last question as well. What reduces variation in a population? Now, this is where you still need to understand terminologies and what they mean. All the options provided for are not just sentences, but scientific terminologies. 2, you have the word variation. 3, in a population, organisms of the same species. They do differ amongst themselves. You have cows at home or goats. They are all cows, they are all goats, but don't they look the same? Now the question is, what will lower the chances for them to continue differing? A, meiosis. Question is, what's meiosis? A type of nuclear division in which gametes are formed. Remember that these gametes are formed for reproduction. Secondly, during their formation, there is a lot of gene swapping, exchange of linkage groups, genetic material, variation in meiosis 1, variation in meiosis 2. B, a mutation. Oof, accidents in the nucleus, sudden, irreversible change in the DNA content of the cell. So change the genes, change the phenotype. C, natural selection. We talked about this already. Sexual reproduction, fusion of the gametes that are already mixed up with genes already increases variation. Now the question was asking what reduces variation, which takes us to our C as you check that when we allow nature to dictate how things go, wiping out certain organisms and allowing others, then differences reduce. If least advantaged organisms die out and only most advantaged organisms survive, then we are reducing variation. So with that, we come to the end of unit assessment, part 1. See you another time when we go to the structured part. Thank you.